Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Talent Forward conversation, the second in our 2021 event series, where we're bringing the most pressing workforce recovery discussions into your homes and offices. As many of you know and have experienced firsthand, the pandemic has decimated many industries. The K-shaped recovery illustrates where jobs have been lost and where they may never return. How will we leverage the talent of Americans who have been displaced and need new skills to get back to work? Today's discussion will focus on reskilling and upskilling for in-demand jobs, highlighting how companies are leveraging platforms that are delivering training experiences in new ways and promote workforce success. Based on a recent survey of more than 1,300 HR professionals, 80% of companies plan to maintain or increase their budgets on skill-based training and development. So how are we going to do it? We've got a really tight agenda today, so let's just get right to it. First, I'm joined by a fantastic team highlighting how effective partnerships result in all-around wins, both for companies, but importantly for workers and job seekers. To discuss their collaboration, I'm pleased to welcome Michael Force, Executive Leader of Boeing's Leadership, Learning, and Organizational Capability Team, John Rote, CISO and Vice President, Corporate and Student Programs, and Craig Schultz, Chief Product Officer, both of Rapid Ascent. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. Appreciate your time. Michael, I wanted to start with you. So Boeing has obviously been a longtime leader in workforce development, innovating around how to ensure your talent meets your business strategies. Talk a little bit about your work and this particular partnership specifically focused on cybersecurity jobs and training.
Can you hear me okay? Thanks so much for inviting us to this session, Cheryl. Yeah, I'll just speak a little bit. We're all coming out of crisis, and one of the things that Andy Grove, one of my first CEOs when I was at Intel, taught was, the not so good companies won't survive a crisis. The good ones might survive, but the best ones come out stronger, and we're looking to come out stronger. We've seen quite a few trends affect the labor industry and the world. COVID being number one, but also economic disparity continues to widen, climate change, and then this fourth industrial revolution of these new technologies where all the technology in the cloud can just accelerate. And that creates some really good things, and it creates some potentially scary things like cyber threats. So we're looking at all these trends and saying, how do we develop for the future and come out stronger? And we think we've created a pretty unique cutting edge workforce development system that has really 5 attributes. And it's very much tied to business strategy. So we're working with the most senior leaders of the company to understand where they're taking the business. And then we come alongside and help develop that people aspect, the people lever. And it really looks at critical roles and teams. And then it's a data-driven approach to development and upskilling across the life cycle of critical roles and teams. So we want everyone to develop their role and career with an emphasis on the most critical roles and teams that can move the business forward. So we think we're onto something good there, and it really leads to more stackable credentials and upskilling on all these new technologies, but on other skills the roles need to perform. What we're realizing, though, is that we can't do it all by ourselves. In the old days of a corporate university where have a whole bunch of learning assets, offer them open enrollment, and then track consumption and satisfaction. That's, although many companies are still stuck in that mode, it's really a way of the past. What we're really trying to do is get more laser focused on upskilling, and we can't keep up with all the new technology. Having thousands of courses and maintaining them and designing more and finding new gaps and designing more is not the way of life for a good learning organization anymore. And so we needed partnerships to help us, people who can keep up on the latest technologies, who have expertise. Rapid Ascent is one of those. They're a startup that's really disrupting the field of education. People with degrees need to continue their development, and those who don't have degrees need job skills, ready job skills. And what we see in companies like Rapid Ascent is expertise from the leaders of that organization. In this case, these people are world-class leaders in cybersecurity, but also to then provide that continuous upskilling and get people job ready in a critical area that's part of this fourth industrial revolution. So, and their expertise right now is cybersecurity. So that's why we formed a partnership with them to tie into this workforce development system that we've created.
So to the Rapid Ascent team, Dr. Schultz and John, what makes sort of your approach different or most effective in meeting the needs of companies? And are you specific to cybersecurity, or are you broader? Just talk a little bit about your company.
Yeah, so this is Craig, and to start off, yeah, so right now we're primarily focused on cyber. And our lead team, brings experts who have been around for over 20 years. I don't think anyone's been under 20 years in cyber. So we've been doing it for quite a while, and training at the workforce level. And actually, one of the things to align with what you mentioned, which is kind of post-COVID, that we've been doing is now actually bringing this to the academy level. So we're going after and training non-traditional students. So folks who are coming in with no background in cyber, maybe displaced by COVID, and are good matches to a cyber career. And so we're bringing that experience to help accelerate them over a 6 to 9 month period, and actually give them the skills that are needed to hit the job right away running. So that's a key part of our approach. To your question of why we can be effective in this area, the one thing we've learned over the last few years, to add on to what Mike said, is that technology in this space is moving very fast, and the controls are moving fast. But clearly, over the last few years, the threats are moving faster, and so it's very difficult for companies to maintain that knowledge on what the current threat profile looks like to their industry or to their specific company, and really be able to train on the skills around that on an ongoing live basis. And so that's what we do. We basically bring together the latest threats, the latest security controls, and the latest best practices against those threats. And we train on skills in that area. And maybe the best way to look at it is, everyone's familiar with the various cybersecurity certifications that are provided. A lot of times those, test for knowledge and make sure that you're familiar with a lot of the things that are going on. But maybe as an analogy, if you're having someone fly a plane in the aviation area, you can test someone for knowledge in terms of, getting into the cockpit and what everything does, but actually, operating the plane and flying it and being able to respond quickly to different issues and have the fundamentals of flying is different than taking essentially a knowledge-based certification. And that's where our program comes in. We go beyond certifications into skills-based operation against malware threats and best practices. And we actually track flight hours, so to speak. So we're tracking how long someone has against a certain type of threat. Maybe it's the latest ransomware, maybe it's SolarWinds supply chain, depending upon the industry and the risk, to companies in that area. And we're actually tracking the performance within the cockpit and tracking, how well they're doing, again, how many flight hours they have, so that when a company hires or is upskilling, they can actually, before they, put someone on a system, they can actually, micro-credential them, given our program, and then have them actually take on that flight control. So they can be assured that they're ready to go, on those systems, and that they've had that live fire time on it.
So interesting. And I mean, I think, we've all experienced the results of recent cyber attacks and long lines at the gas station. And but it just makes you think, is there anybody who doesn't need to be thinking about this and doesn't need somebody in their enterprise that is trained by you or someone else on cybersecurity? I don't know who might want to answer that, John. Yeah.
Let John answer that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, based on the latest CISO report, where they surveyed approximately 1,400 CISOs, and it showed that is a big concern of the CISOs, because it's getting difficult to find qualified candidates that they can bring in and fill the positions. And even some, the candidates they do bring in, they're bringing in, and they're not meeting the roles. They're not meeting what they needed, but they were a good candidate for cyber. And the other thing they're running into is the positions. It's hard to fill the positions, which puts the company, at additional risk.
Yeah.
So that's something, that's what we're trying to resolve here. You need up to, 6 to 9 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars of training. And I've been there to bring in candidates who really aren't qualified. You have to get them to that point where, it reduces the risk to your company. And then when you get them to that point, they have a tendency to leave. So that's what we're trying to resolve.
Is there any, is there a difference between what Boeing needs in terms of its cybersecurity workforce versus other companies? And do you work directly with a company in order to I guess, customize the training? This is coming, I'm asking questions of somebody who's not an expert in cyber. So I don't, that might be a dumb question, but I'm curious about how you work directly with companies.
So that is a great question, actually. And yeah, what I would say is if you take a look at, for instance, a financial institution, so what do they typically need? They're running branches, maybe globally, and they're running, terabytes of financial data through their data centers. So scalability and the ability to track, attacks that are some of the first of their kind, is top of mind for financial companies. That kind of high throughput capability in cyber and monitoring is very different than, let's say, utility or pipeline. That's really trying to protect, a very specific area. They don't have a lot of attacks oftentimes. But when the attacks come, they're very, very, devastating, and they can be catastrophic. That's a very different, type of skill set between those two. And of course, if you're Boeing, you're looking at aerospace, right? And so you're looking at how do my engineers, how do my coders, actually secure their systems. And so you're talking, by company, by industry, as you mentioned, very different requirements. And so what we're doing is building a platform that allows companies to actually specify what their skills are, what type of products they're running, and then how much flight time, is required to be able to secure those systems. And then we adjust the curriculum for both upskilling, and then actually within our academy, for those who are looking for apprenticeships in companies, we actually feed that directly into the students so that they're being trained right on the skills that are required for those positions. And that makes them more successful because, you can shotgun approach cyber, but allowing people to focus in on an industry quickly and really understand what they need to know to do that job effectively, we find is the best way to train folks. And then they can advance from there. They can move into different types of positions.
One of you all mentioned the sort of rapid nature of this industry or this particular area. And I wonder if that sort of, it seems to me that just lends itself to the type of training that you all do in this startup that you are, as opposed to, say, a traditional, 4-year degree program around cybersecurity. Are you guys, is there a difference in the way that you were able to sort of respond quickly, change your curriculum, be sort of in the moment and responsive to needs as they're changing so quickly?
Yeah, so I'd say John Rote's best to answer that. John's been an incident responder at AOL, MetLife, and lead on each of those. So, John, why don't we hear from you a bit on this one?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, actually, because you do need to stay up with the latest threats and risks. And a good example is, was the supply chain that happened recently. And that's a huge one. A lot of companies really didn't think of that threat or risk. And I bet you, 2 years ago, if you had asked a company to go, hey, what are your top 10 risks? Supply chain probably wouldn't even showed up in there. So we can go ahead and when something like that new comes out, we're partnering with some companies, threat intel companies, where a new threat comes out, we can quickly adapt our curriculum, our courses, our labs to focus on that new threat to keep, our students abreast of the latest risks and threats out there.
It's so interesting. Michael, I wanted to just go back to you quickly. Everyone's seen the numbers, unemployment, 9.3 million, nearly as many open jobs. Is Boeing experiencing this gap, and how are you dealing with its effects?
Yeah, we are definitely sure. We see ourselves as really competing for tech talent these days. So engineering talent, certainly manufacturing, but also tech talent. And we do see this kind of crossroads of the labor market in the U.S. where There are many people unemployed due to COVID, but at the same time, a lot of open positions that require different skills. So we're doing a couple things in this space. We're working with Rework America and really focused on the diverse COVID unemployed. And it's an alliance of companies within Rework America with Toyota and Zurich Insurance and Duke Energy and others. Google's in there, Microsoft's in there, and really saying, hey, how do we provide some foundational training to help reskill people, particularly diverse COVID unemployed, who can't afford to go back to a 4-year degree, never got one, and don't have the time. They need to, put food on the table. And so our plan is to create an apprenticeship program, at least for starters, in the area of cyber, working with these other companies, and working through suppliers like Rapid Ascent who can help us. And the idea is to give them training, foundational training that could give college credit, like a micro degree, so they learn some things online, but then they get hands-on training from Rapid Ascent, so they're really job ready. At the same time, having an apprenticeship at Boeing, and so they're able to really then get their foot in the door and start working at Boeing, at least part-time, while they get the hands-on training from Rapid Ascent and finish some foundational courses. That could lead to a 4-year degree if they want, but it also gets them a foot in the door to an entry-level role in an area like cyber that we think is a bridge role to higher order positions within the company, because cyber is so new and emerging. Mm-hmm. We're also doing the same with veterans, military veterans. Boeing has a program called Future Force, and it's a program where it's reskilling military veterans in these new fourth industrial revolution skills. So with cyber also being on the forefront in that space, so that military veterans who are coming out of the military, don't have time or money to go get a degree, can get job ready skills, again, in the same kind of methodology. We think that this is just a start. Cyber is one skill area that's critical. We see others like quality specialists, others where we can hire people without degrees to come in and take apprenticeships, get the right training, and have these stackable credentials.
So as cyber is just where you've begun, yes. you see expanding into some of these other areas too. Interesting. So Dr. Schultz and John, I'm not sure who might be best to answer this, but how have you seen your work change over the last year, or your partnerships with companies? Has it meant growth for you or a different kind of partnership?
So I'll take that one initially, and John, you can follow up. But yeah, it really has changed recently, especially with some of the more dynamic attacks here. And again, I think the bigger issue here is with these latest attacks, what we've seen is the need for cybersecurity personnel go up, not down. And so while right now there are about 600,000 positions unfilled, we're seeing that rise. It'll probably cross 1 million positions unfilled right now. And so, key here is just, making sure that, these different companies can actually, have staff on site that can handle the latest attacks. The other thing I'd mention is that things have really shifted from, as you've noticed throughout COVID, suddenly there's been a massive cloud migration. So many people are going off their on-site systems to remote or to cloud-based systems. And so, a lot of these companies do not have the expertise in those areas. And that's not an expertise that's been trained on, for a lot of schools. And so what we're seeing is just almost a disruptive shift in terms of the skills that are required. And that's really what's driven us over the last year to look at, how we accelerate programs, how we train people very rapidly to be able to adjust to kind of these tectonic shifts that are going on right now.
Well, and I think you said something earlier, John, you may have said this, you're able to train somebody who's never had experience in cyber before. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about today, is we have a massive number of people who are unemployed, whose jobs have gone away or not coming back. This is a field where you can take somebody with little to no experience, and as you just said, 600,000 to 1 million jobs. I mean, this is an in-demand field, right?
It is, and I've taken a few folks in the last couple of years that just came in with no experience whatsoever, and they quickly learn if you're training them right and working with them, giving them the hands-on experience, and it's just not the initial training. The other thing we're looking at providing is cyber is a continuous training. When you become an alumni from us, are we done with you? No. You need to continually learn. I know I do. I spend a lot of time at night sitting there learning new stuff. So that's something else that we're looking to provide is after you've become an alumni to keep working with you on the latest threats and risks and stuff like that.
That's fantastic. Well, I think we could go on. We could continue this conversation for another hour, I'm sure. And we've certainly seen time and again that when employers invest in their talent strategy as a key part of their business strategy, it's certainly sort of a win-win for the company and workers. So I want to thank you, Michael, John, Craig, for illustrating how employers and training partners can play to their respective strengths and build those effective talent pipelines. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now we have the privilege of being joined by Lisa Gevelbehr. She is the Vice President of Grow with Google and Chief Marketing Officer of the Americas region for Google. Grow with Google has certainly been front and center of late, particularly as communities look to bolster their recovery efforts. We've certainly been tracking their efforts since their inception, and we're so grateful to have Lisa here with us to join us today. Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much.
Hey, Cheryl. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I mentioned we've sort of been tracking your work for, I guess you launched in 2017. So just tell us a little bit about Grow with Google, and then also, since you first launched, how has it shifted over this past year with the pandemic?
Sure. Yeah. As you said, we started in 2017 on a mission to make sure that the opportunities that are created by technology are truly available to everyone. And really, Grow with Google is our economic opportunity initiative. And our focus has always actually been, how do we help the 2/3 of Americans without a college degree get access to great jobs, right? There are 80 million American workers who don't have a degree and who feel like great jobs have been out of reach for them. And of course, the pandemic just accelerated the need for things like this because, as you can imagine, folks without college degrees were the most impacted. But all of the pandemic stuff just really accelerated trends that were already happening. 2/3 of jobs in America require mid and high level digital skills. And actually, PwC did a recent study with CEOs who said that one of the biggest threats to the growth of their companies was actually their inability to find people with the right skills for the job. And so at Grow with Google, we've done a bunch of things, but one of the things that I think is most impactful is our career certificate program. And basically that program trains people for in-demand, high growth, high paying jobs, regardless of their educational or work experience, and puts them into those fields. And we teach, 4 fields right now, which actually have 1.3 million open jobs in the US right now. And those are IT support, data analytics, user experience design, and project management. So there's lots of jobs all over the country, not just on the coasts, in those 4 fields. All of our certificates, are built by Google employees with decades of years of experience in the fields, but then we vet all of the curriculum with employers. And I think one of the things that's really special about this program is not only are we teaching working Americans how to get the skills for these jobs that are, going to be growing for years to come, but we have employers who have been really engaged in the program with us. We have over 130 employers who are eager to hire these Google Career Certificate graduates. And so I think that's, really meaningful. And we're off to a really good start. We've graduated 50,000 people in just IT support, just the one field already. That was the first certificate that we launched. And so with all these employers eager to hire graduates, I think we're really going to make a difference in creating economic opportunity and mobility for everyone.
Have you seen the uptick? I mean, have you seen an uptick over the past year in sort of interest in or, desire to access these certificates that you're talking about?
Oh my gosh, the interest just is exploding. I think, people are eager to find ways to create opportunity for themselves, and they want to do it with high quality programs. And so I think the fact that these were all designed and built by Google employees with decades of experience, and that they've been vetted by other employers, who are saying that we're teaching exactly the skills that they're looking to hire for. And then we have this hiring consortium of companies on the back end really makes our program quite unique. And so we are seeing gigantic enrollment and uptake across all of the career fields that I was just talking about. And we're super eager to work with, more and more employers. Now we're actually getting a lot of inbound interest from companies who not just want to hire, which is amazing. And we have, hiring commitments. Some companies have committed to hire hundreds and even thousands of our graduates. But we're seeing a new trend, which is that a lot of companies are reaching out to reskill their existing employees, really forward-thinking companies who realize that this is a, inexpensive, incredibly high ROI way to offer retraining for their existing workforces. And that's something that we're really excited about. I think, our ability to train plus these employers' investment in their own employees is, a breakthrough investment for American workers. And we're super excited. If there's anyone on this session who's interested in, talking with us more about this reskilling or hiring, like, we're super eager to talk to you. You can either email me personally. It's just my last name at google.com, gavelber@google.com. That's my email. Or you can also go to our website, and it's grow.google/employers is the URL. And we're, this is a big task, right? Skilling Americans for the jobs of today. And I intentionally say today and not tomorrow, because these are the jobs of today. And it's going to take all of us. Like, it really does take a whole ecosystem. So anyone who's interested, please do reach out to us. We are absolutely looking for partners in this journey.
Thank you for saying that and for offering that, because that really is the point of these sessions that we're doing, is to really provide some real solutions to, honestly, what we hear every single day from the smallest of companies to the largest of companies, which is this issue of people without jobs without people is their biggest challenge. So I was going to ask you about what you're seeing from innovative companies, but I think you just said it, which is they're the forward-looking ones. They're the ones that are contacting you saying, this is a way that we can look to our current workforce and upskill. How does that work? They reach out to you, and you then tell me how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. They should just reach out to us. Everyone has a little bit different needs. We have some employers who know they're going to be doing maybe some kind of reduction in their workforce, and they're looking to make sure that they can reskill and keep as many of those people as possible. And even for the ones that they cannot keep, they want to make sure they land well, right? These are companies who are really good citizens of the world and of their communities. And they want to make sure that, anyone that they can't keep ends up having, these great skills for these in-demand, high-paying, high-growth jobs. And then there's a bunch of companies who are just looking at it as a retention tool, kind of the opposite, which is like, we have people we want to keep, we want to give them opportunity, and so we want to use this as one of our primary, reskilling offerings. And all of these certificates were built for working people, meaning they're all on demand. They're, most people finish in 3 to 6 months of part-time study, and they're really made for, people who already have jobs to, quickly reskill themselves. But they're very rigorous. So each of the certificates we offer has over 100 hours of content, but also over 100 assessments, so that that when someone graduates with one of these certificates, like, they really know their stuff. And that was really important to us. We're not looking to make a lot of digital badges. Our goal is economic mobility. We're looking for people to get and succeed in these high growth job fields. And that's why the certificates are deliberately quite rigorous.
So we had a question from the audience, which I thought was an interesting one, which is, how do your certificate programs address necessary sort of employability skills like teamwork? Is that sort of built into the certificates?
Yeah, our certificates teach not just specific subject matter expertise, although that is a crucial part of them. They teach, critical thinking and problem solving and communication. And then the other thing that I think is really special is you finish these certificates with assets. Meaning, let's say you do the user experience design certificate, you finish with a portfolio of assets you've created as part of doing the certificate, and you've built a website that holds your portfolio. So then when you go to look for a job, one of the things that people look for in a designer is, where's your portfolio? And same for the project management and data analytics certificate. Like, you leave those certificates having done some of those, for example, data analyses, and with your report on your actual analysis, so you can showcase that to employers. And we got some of those assessments and some of those exercises from other employers like Deloitte, who gave us some of the assessments they use to ensure that people are proficient with SQL and R and the other tools used in data analytics. So not only do we have input from employers, ensuring that people, are assessed at the skills that are necessary, but there's actual output that people can take into their job interviews. They have something to show for it, as well as having the certificate itself. And then we also provide job seekers with a full package from Big Interview, where they get to practice interview skills. We give them 1 year of free Big Interview training, which is like a $900 value. You get it for free for doing the certificate. And then we provide you with other things like resume templates that are specific to these particular job fields, so that you know how to translate what you just learned onto paper and can effectively communicate about the skills that you're capable of. So really trying to help the job seeker put together the whole package so that they can effectively communicate all the goodness that they're bringing to these employers.
That is fantastic. So I'm curious about this. How do you think this is sort of Google's entrance into the skilling and certification sort of broader ecosystem? How is this going to impact traditional post-secondary education more broadly? I mean, it feels like the future, right? I mean, this is you're filling a need, you're able to be sort of nimble and responsive. Like, how do you think it will impact that sort of broader ecosystem?
Yeah, it's super interesting. So as I said, we started kind of on this mission to make sure that people who don't have a college degree have the same access to these great jobs. And 60% of our graduates are those people without a college degree, but 40% of our graduates have a degree. And it's super interesting. If you look at Burning Glass data, for example, I think the Wall Street Journal recently published an article about this. Someone like me, so I actually have a bachelor's in psychology. If someone is graduating with a psychology degree today, on average, they make $39,000 a year as a starting income. But if they graduate with a degree in psychology, but also have a data analytics certificate, they graduate with an income of $60,000 a year. And they have hundreds of thousands of more jobs available to them, right? And so what we're really seeing, 40% of our graduates today have a degree. This Burning Glass data showcases also that the power of these additional certificates can mean that graduates are more employable at higher salaries. And so just as we've seen forward-thinking employers, we have so many forward-thinking institutions now coming to us. And we've announced already partnerships with Northeastern and SUNY and Purdue University, all of whom are giving credit to students who take and complete the Google Career Certificate programs. And we're super excited. There's a bunch more of those conversations happening that I can't announce the specifics of today, but we're talking to a lot of four-year institutions. We already have a partnership with over 100 community colleges. We expect we'll double that in the near future. And then we previously announced that we are entering career and technical high schools as well. And we hope to have 100 career and technical high schools up and running. We have several already up and going. And now regular high schools have started to reach out to us. So at the end of the day, this problem of making sure that Americans have the skills they need for these high-paying, high-growth jobs, it's an ecosystem problem, and none of us are going to solve it alone. And so we're working with employers. We are working with educational institutions of all sorts. We're working with the workforce boards in our communities, really making sure that especially unemployed Americans have free access to the Google career certificates. And so we really encourage partners to reach out. Again, my personal email is gavelber@Google. It's my last name, gavelber@google.com. And we really hope that folks will reach out to us, because I think that's how we'll make the biggest difference, is really coming at it as a whole ecosystem together.
And we'll put that in the chat so folks have it. And I think it feels like there's a huge opportunity with the amount of federal investment that's flowing to states over the last few months with the American Rescue Plan dollars. There's some flexibility, I know, with states and how those are used and whether they will prioritize workforce and workforce training. And this seems like the perfect match, right? Let's invest some of those dollars in training that is showing real results, like what you're talking about here. So
yeah, we definitely have an opportunity at this very moment to create an economy that better works for everyone, a more inclusive and equitable economy. This is our time.
Yeah.
And we all need to step up together to deliver on that.
Absolutely. So one quick question, because I know you've got a great partnership with our colleagues at the Chamber Foundation in hiring our heroes. Talk a little bit about that and how sort of this just issue of upskilling and reskilling is really important to the veteran community or the returning veteran community, and what is Grow with Google doing to support that?
Yeah, we love working with hiring our heroes, and we've been doing it for several years, as you say. When we started Grow with Google and we looked at where we could make a big impact in economic opportunity, transitioning service members were a big and obvious choice, as well as military spouses. And so we've done a whole bunch of things over the past few years. One of my favorite things is we built right into the Google search box the ability for transitioning service members to find jobs that use similar skills to the ones they used in the military by just simply typing in jobs for veterans. And then it pops up a second box where you can enter your military occupation specialty code, the thing you were trained to do in the military, the job field you were trained for in the military. And then we'll show you jobs that are open right now that use similar skills. And it really expands people's understanding of what they could go do and gives them immediate access to jobs that are open right now that leverage similar skills. One of the other things we did a few years ago is allow small businesses, because I know 9% of American small businesses are veteran-led businesses, to put a badge right on their Google business page that says that they're veteran-led. So folks can really support the veteran-led businesses, inside and outside of their community. But we also partnered with Hiring Our Heroes to do a career roadmap for military spouses. We all know how hard it is if you're a military spouse, because you're often, moving so frequently that it's hard to keep your career up and going. And so we created with Hiring Our Heroes this military spouse career roadmap tool to help people think about various career options and their career mobility. And I actually also think really these career certificates are ideal for military spouses because they are an industry recognized portable credential, right? So unlike state licensing, where when you move states, it's super hard to get relicensed, which I know is the case for so many. It's a portable credential that you can take anywhere with you. And so I think for military spouses, the Google career certificates are also really, really good option.
Well, I just want to say thank you for that support of Hiring Our Heroes for so many years, and just the partnership that we've had over the years, and want to continue that. And if there are folks, again, I hope you'll take Lisa up on her offer. Please reach out to her directly. It's fantastic work, and I know under your leadership, it will just continue to expand and reach more and more folks and impact countless lives. So thank you so much for all of this great information today and for joining us, Lisa.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for your amazing partnership.
Thank you. And lastly, but certainly not least, I have the pleasure of welcoming Gabe Dalporto, the Chief Executive Officer of Udacity. Udacity, an early player in offering online courses, has continued to evolve to meet the needs of the market. Gabe, I want to thank you for being with us today and joining with us. Oh, there he is, the lovely surprises with virtual events. I was like, you don't look like Gabe. That looks like my colleague, Jamie. Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate your time.
Totally my pleasure. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you guys are certainly, Udacity, impressive in both the number of programs that you offer as well as the number of graduates that you can claim. But we both know sort of the real important piece to that is how a person's education and training is actually linking them to a job. So talk a little bit about the priority that you have given that and how you all do that at Udacity.
Yeah, so Udacity, we kind of think of ourselves as a talent transformation platform, and really we want to be the fastest, most effective way to get job-ready skills, right? So getting people ready to deploy their skills on the job day one, and we to do that we really start with building our programs around a job resume. We start with, if you want to be an Android app developer, what does your resume look like? And then how do we actually get you skills building those programs and doing the work so that you're not just having watched a video or taken a quiz, but you've actually built an Android app as an example. So really I think from our perspective, the critical thing is understanding how do we attach the critical needs of a business or a consumer, like where do they want to go with their career, what outcomes do you want, and then how do you build programs from scratch with that in mind.
And talk a little bit about your business partnerships. So you obviously that is the thing I knew about Udacity before I knew much was partnerships with real employers, right? Meeting their needs directly, working with them to make sure that what you're delivering is what they need. Talk about that for a minute. Yeah,
and we really are built with industry for industry, and maybe an example would be helpful. We work with Shell, and Shell is a very large oil company. An energy company, and Shell came to us and said, we operate in 70 countries. We have a small central decision science group that's just not capable of servicing the data needs of 70 countries. We need to get machine learning and data science out into the field. We have an asset, which is a bunch of geological, civil, structural engineers. They know math, they don't understand data science. Can you work with us to get those guys skilled up? So they can deploy those skills out into the field. And so we created a custom learning track for that target audience. We got them trained on data science, got them trained on machine learning. They went out into the field globally. Some of the first graduates from our programs then took those skills, built a machine learning model that took live streaming sensor data from every rig across the planet. And they were able to predict mechanical failure 2 weeks in advance, get the equipment out into the field ahead of time, avoid outages, and every one of those avoided outages saved them $2 million, $100 million to date. And so for us, success looks like that. It's identifying what are the mission critical things a business needs to do to be successful, where you don't have the talent to achieve that goal. How do we create custom programs with you, deliver those programs, and actually measure the ROI impact?
So you may have just answered this question for me, but I'm curious if you'd say something else, which is why should employers be thinking about reskilling and upskilling as sort of a critical business strategy? The ROI being one right there. What else?
Well, if you take a big view of this, $1.8 trillion is going to be spent this year on digital transformation. And really what companies and enterprises are trying to do is to transform themselves to compete in a technology forward world and not get disrupted by other countries, not get disrupted by other companies. Of that $1.8 trillion of digital transformation spend, $1 trillion will be wasted. And the number one reason it is wasted is because enterprises don't have the talent to implement those transformations. In fact, our data shows 83% of the Global 2000 say they have a major skills gap, and 70% of them say they can't innovate because they don't have the talent to do it. And the hardest to fill areas are things like AI, machine learning, data science, cybersecurity, cloud computing, autonomous systems, software development. These are all, broadly speaking, digital transformation areas, and that's what's between them and success. And if I was to give, a piece of advice to a company of how to deal with this, is don't think of this as an employee benefit, right? If you do that, it won't work. What we see is very low adoption of employee-driven, reskilling and upskilling, very low graduation rates, and it's almost impossible to tie to ROI. Think about this and do what you do as a normal company, and make this an initiative and make this a strategy and treat it programmatically. Tie this to mission critical initiatives that you're struggling to staff. Build programs to specifically deliver the job skills you need to achieve those mission critical objectives. And then, work with someone like Udacity to help identify talent within your organization who can be successful at upskilling and achieving those standards. Onboard them, drive them through in a very programmatic approach, get them graduated and deployed in their jobs so you can actually measure the impact. And if you take that approach, you typically get like 80% graduation and success rates by being, very direct and programmatic about it.
I mean, you're speaking our language, Gabe. I mean, the way you were just talking about it is exactly how we have been really approaching this with our chamber partners, economic development agency partners over the years, is to really think about their talent the way they think about any other piece of their business. Really, it is part of their business strategy. And, it's interesting though, because it feels like it's sort of novel for many companies to think about it that way, and to think about training as something other than an employee benefit. So I love how you sort of framed that. So we've talked in the past about this issue of digital skills and the need for digital skills, but it's not just the tech industry, obviously, that is in need of all of the things you just said: data scientists, coders, cybersecurity analysts. How should the non-tech industry leaders be thinking about digital skills in their workforce?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, if you're Google or you're Facebook, you don't have that much of a problem recruiting top talent. Like, you're an extremely attractive employer. You can pay more than anybody else on the planet. Those guys are fine. Yeah. If you're PNC Bank or you're Anglo American Mining or you're like, a less sexy organization, it is very, very hard to fill that talent. We just signed a major US bank who had posted 150 data scientist roles, and 6 months into recruiting for them, they had hired 8, right? And so really, this is not, in fact, this in a way is not at all for tech companies. They tend to do okay. It's for everybody else that's struggling to fill these roles. People like, the automotive industry is being disrupted in a massive way by companies like Tesla, and auto manufacturers thought for years that it was all about the hardware. And it turns out it's not about the hardware in the future. It's really about the software and that, infotainment system and environment and navigation and all this other stuff and self-driving. And so every, category, every industry is going through these really sea change moments where what they thought was true is no longer true. And it's very hard if you're not one of these top tier tech companies to find the talent to do it. So you just got to manufacture the talent in-house.
So let's shift a little bit, just thinking about the last year. How has the pandemic changed the partnerships that you are seeing or developing with companies? Has it changed? Has it changed what they need or what they need from you in terms of skills and training delivery?
So completely, things are accelerating, and a majority of companies, when surveyed recently, said they are accelerating their investments in digital transformation, right? So companies are leaning in even harder. And people with the skill sets of the past are being kind of pushed to the side and being laid off, and people with the skill sets of the future are in incredibly high demand. The problem is there's just not people there. And so, many, like, if you take any of these areas we've been talking about, the demand for those jobs over the 4 years ending 2020, doubled, right, over a 4-year period. The demand from 2020 to 2021 in 1 year doubled again. And so you already can't hire these people, and it's accelerating and it's getting worse. And everybody's going after the same small set of employees. And I had a conversation with the chief security officer of a major bank the other day, and she said to me, it is literally an all-out war for cybersecurity talent, and we just can't hire it, and so we have to make it. Right? It's a lot of pain, but what I can tell you, and I can tell your listeners, is this is very solvable. It's very doable. Like, we do this every day. We work with large employers transforming their organizations. You just have to do it in a very programmatic approach, and it's completely doable.
So you referenced, employees with the skills of the past, and we're fighting for the limited number with the skills of the future. How do we help those with the skills of the past get to the skills that you're talking about? Is it a PR issue? Is it that we gotta help them understand what is available to them? And I know you're also talking to policymakers about things that we can be doing. Like, what can we do?
Yeah, and then obviously you don't start with taking a call center up and making them a machine learning engineer. Like, that's a pretty long move. But there's a lot of people in your organizations that are quite bright, and probably the single most important factor to success in getting someone into an entry-level tech area is really just tenacity. Like, who wants it bad and who's going to put the energy and time into doing it? And from there's entry-level positions in cybersecurity and cloud and programming and data. So many people in your organization can climb up that first rung, and then from there they can just build their skill sets. Now, if you want to create a machine learning engineer, you're probably going to take someone who is maybe a software engineer, or someone who was maybe just in the Shell example, a geological civil engineer, someone who has pretty good math skills, and then you put them on a program to kind of get them up the ladder. And it's not going to be overnight, but it can be pretty fast to get them functional, and then continue to invest in their training to get them state of the art. So all of this is taking a programmatic approach of really assessing and understanding the skill sets you have, assessing what you need, and then doing that mapping. And that's really what we do. Like, we help our clients do the assessments to figure out where people are, figure out what the next logical step in their career is, how that aligns to your open roles, and get them there.
Do you ever do this with maybe nonprofit organizations? I'm thinking about a question in the chat from an audience member about underserved or underrepresented communities. Like, how to provide, how to get access to those communities, to the types of things you're talking about.
So that's literally our fastest growing segment right now. And we are working with nonprofits and employer CSR programs. So if you think about employers, they often have a pretty substantial budget on how do we invest in underrepresented communities and kind of make an impact. Most of that money is wasted because there's really no great ways to show impact. But if you start to work with a company like Udacity and create scholarship programs and be really thoughtful about how you can do it, you can get really good graduation rates. And we show that within 12 months, 70% of people who graduate our programs have gotten a promotion, have gotten a raise, or have some other really positive career outcome. So if you think about just the accountability of that and the direct tie to human welfare and moving people along in their careers and getting underrepresented groups access to high-paying tech-forward careers and a career ladder, and not just some dead-end job, it's really impactful, and that is our fastest-growing segment.
Is there a place where folks who might be interested in learning more about that or other pieces is it just udacity.com, or?
We're happy to have anyone send me an email, gabe@udacity.com, and I'll make sure you get to the right person.
Okay, perfect. So I want to ask another question. So one of your, I think, signature pieces is sort of the project-based learning piece of what you offer, which is something that I think is often missing. We love to see it. How does that work with online learning? And how does it sort of differ from sort of other similar, I guess, your competitors maybe?
Yeah. So I think we really are the only ones that start with an employable resume and work backwards. And I like to say you don't learn karate by watching Bruce Lee movies, and you don't learn machine learning by watching someone talk about machine learning. You learn by doing, and not just little coding snippets, but like really doing it, taking software, applying it to massive data sets, applying machine learning algorithms, and delivering an outcome that someone would actually employ. And in our AI for Healthcare nano degree, your first project, you teach AI how to recognize pneumonia off a chest x-ray, which is applicable to COVID diagnostic and treatment. In our Android app developer nano degree, to graduate that program, you have to build an Android app, upload it to the Play Store, have it accepted by Google and published, right? And then we review it and make sure it works and it achieves the criteria. In our self-driving car engineer course, to graduate from that course, you have to literally upload your code into Udacity's self-driving car, which we have. And using your code, it drives around a course, stops when it goes on green, it doesn't hit stuff, so you get a job day one at Tesla. So really everything we build is around hands-on learning and execution in a pretty deep way. And that's truly how you learn. You learn by doing, you don't learn by watching videos. We also have a worldwide network of experts, so then when you get stuck on a problem, we can literally 24/7 at 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning, get you an answer to your coding question or get you line by line code reviews of one of those projects in under 3 hours, 24/7. So it's a combination of those deep project-based learning skills tied to real outcomes someone would employ and use in their day-to-day job, and that supported approach with our worldwide network of experts.
So I should have asked this at the beginning, but I want our audience to know just how deep you guys go. I mean, you're all over the world, right? I mean, is there any place you're not in?
We've got students in 240 countries, we work with businesses all over the planet. The United States is less than half of our revenue. We're really a substantial presence in Europe, throughout the Middle East. We have presence in Latin America and in Asia. So we're definitely a global platform. We work with employers all over the world, and really we're trying to find a way to bridge people from the past to the future. And we very much look forward to working with employers. We also work with nations to reskill their populations. We work with nonprofits to achieve their goals. And really the success for us is people. It's not that someone graduates from programs. Success is when they get a new job, they get a promotion, they deliver value for a client, and have a better and more meaningful life.
Well, thank you. So I think that's a great way to end. And I want to just say thank you. And we, look forward to continued conversations with you and your team and ways that we can either bring our employer network to you or our chamber network to you, and in ways in which we can partner, because I think we are aligned in those similar goals. So thank you so much for being here today, Gabe. Really appreciate you.
It was a true pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we appreciate all our speakers today, Michael, John, Craig, Lisa, and Gabe, for joining us, but really for the positive difference each of them and their organizations are making in communities across the country. We certainly are well aware that the road to recovery is steep, but with the leadership of companies like Boeing, training providers like Udacity, Rapid Ascent, Grow with Google, we know that we're going to be able to get there, and we're going to be able to solve this sort of ever-present challenge of people without jobs and jobs without people. I want to thank our event sponsor, Deloitte, for making this conversation possible. And we look forward to hosting all of you again on our next event, which will be Tuesday, July 20th. Until then, thanks so much for joining us.